In this demonstration you will learn how to create a customer item view model, which is a view model for a single customer. Let's switch to Visual Studio. Here I've opened the customer's view model. From here, you expose the customer model directly to the user interface. It is okay to do this, but you need to be aware that if you change a property of a customer in the view model, the data bindings in the user interface are not notified. This is because this customer class does not implement the iNotify property changed interface. Now, of course, you could implement this interface here on the customer class. But instead of doing this, you can also create a view model that represents that customer. Creating a view model is from an architecture point of view the cleaner approach, because then the view does not have to know anything about the model. So in this case, let's create a view model for the customer. So let's right-click here the view model folder and let's select from the context menu Add Class. You could call this view model Customer View Model, but this would be a bit confusing with the customer's view model that we have already. So instead of giving it this name, let's call it Customer Item View Model. Then it is clear that this view model is for a single customer. Now let's add it to the project. First, let's make this class a public class and let's inherit it from view model base, as we need the property changed event. Now let me put the cursor on the using directives and let's remove these unnecessary usings. Next, let's use the CTOR snippet and let's press the tab key twice to insert a constructor. On the constructor, I define a parameter of type customer and I press Ctrl- to add a using directive for the model namespace. Let's call the parameter model and let's press Ctrl- to create and assign that parameter to a field. Again, let's add here an underscore to the field and let's press Ctrl- to rename it. Let's also remove then here the optional this keyword. Now you define in this view model the properties of the customer. So first, let's use here the prop snippet to define the ID property. Normally you don't want to set this one from the user interface, so let's make it a read-only property with an expression body. Let's just return from the model the ID. Next, let's define the first name property. To do this, I use the prop full snippet and I press the tab key twice. Let's make this property of type string and let's call the property first name. Now I delete here the backing field and instead of returning here the backing field, I just use an expression and I grab from the model the first name. As you can see, it is underlined because first name may be null. So let's also define this property here as a nullable string property. Now let's implement the setter. In the setter, let's set on the model the first name property, and after that, let's raise the property changed event with a method from the view model base class. Now, this way, you wrap the properties of the model to raise the property changed event. So let's copy this property and let's implement also the last name property. And then finally, let's paste it again and let's implement here the isDeveloper property. I copy this and this property is of type bool. Now you have implemented this customer item view model and you can use it actually in the customer's view model to expose it to the user interface. So here, instead of using the customer, let's use now the customer item view model. I copy this class and I use it also here for the selected customer field and for the selected customer property. Now let's scroll down to the load async method. Here, where the customer is added, you need to create now a new customer item view model and you pass the customer to the constructor of this view model. Now let's scroll down to the add method. Also here, you need to create a customer item view model. So let's create here a view model variable and let's initialize it with a new customer item view model that wraps this customer. Now let's add this view model to the customer's property And let's also assign it to the selected customer property of our customer's view model. Now everything is done, and as this view model has the same properties as the customer, the data bindings in the user interface should just work. So let's run the application, and you can see the list view comes up, and you can also see here the details on the right side. Alright, in the next clip, let me show you how to bind the attached grid column property.